Hi there, welcome to another episode of UI5ers Live. Today we'll be catching up with Jan Mumenthaler, whom you might remember from our episode 29. Jan is here to provide an update on the progress made on the new Bootstrap. He is joined by Johannes Gluch, and together they will be showcasing the features of minimal bootstrapping, including performance improvements and the new configuration and extensibility options. Welcome back, Jan.
Hi, everyone.
And hello, Johannes.
Hi, everyone.
Another topic we will be discussing is theming. And there, Peter Music will guide us through the process of developing and theming custom UI5 controls using CSS Custom Properties. They are now fully supported in OpenUI5 1.127 and beyond. So also, hello, Peter.
Hello.
I'm Margot Wolny, your host for today. With the introduction out of the way, let's jump right into the action. We will start with Jan and Johannes, who are eager to share their Bootstrap insights. So take it away, guys.
Okay, now it's up on me. Okay, today we started with an update what we did with the Bootstrap because long time no update. I think the last one was somewhere around episode 29, and some update in the keynote of UI5Con last year, where we showcased the first ideas with a POC. So we showcased you a little WebC application, web components with a self-contained build, showing up our new ideas, how we can improve performance if we load things in parallel instead of sequential. Sounds good. And if we only load things we really need, and how we manage to cut things down into smaller modules, reduce dependency trees, and so on and so on. And we showcased this 1 year ago, so it's time for a next update. So we created a new application because the old web components are deprecated with UI5 2. So we need to come up with a new idea, and that's our seamless web components integration. I think that will showcased by Peter in some other sessions, so we will not look into that in detail. So same application, same view, same controller, same logic as before, only compared against the old UI5 1 and then with the new Bootstrap in 2, because we actually managed to bring the Bootstrap in 2.x. We replaced the monolithic, complete big core with the new lightweight one that is capable of all the things we told you. So it's in, it's working, and it's compatible to the old world. So if you build applications, I would say best practice in 1, it should work with all the new approaches in 2. So let's have a look at some measures. So I already did some measurements because I don't want to build all that from scratch, but we can do some live measurements afterwards, so you will see I'm not lying. First, we start with the to-do application against an old 1 version of UI5. As already seen, you have a big core, you have a big library preload that is loaded sequentially, and some other files also loaded, sometimes in parallel, sometimes sequentially, and that comes up to 4 MB unzipped resources. So if you do now a measurement, it doesn't look too good. It's first contentful pane is late, so we interaction with DOM is late. The app comes up with the last rendering in 6.2 seconds, and we also have some blocking time that are long-running tasks blocking the main thread. That's not good because the browser cannot lay out, you cannot check for response of requests or process model data, and so on and so on. What we now will do, we will do the same against our actual UI5 2 development. What you directly see, a lot of more requests, 31. That's due to chunking. So we split up the Bootstrap phase in a lot of small chunks. We load in parallel, as you can see here. Yeah, the core is smaller, it's only 32K, and then some other stuff, also small modules, gets loaded if needed. The complete Bootstrap is configurable, so if you do not configure a feature, it will not be loaded. So, and then you see we reduce the payload 400K. So it's only a new Bootstrap that does not load everything as before. You reduce the Bootstrap, the overall payload, not the Bootstrap. Now let's see what this will look like in Lighthouse. Always mobile measurements, a lot better. Not in regards to large contentful paint. It's only, I think it's half a second faster, but half a second is half a second. So only by bootstrapping in a different way, it's faster. We are able to interact with DOM early, and we reduce the blocking time a lot. So that are the features. What we not did with this application, it's not a self-contained bundle, and why you will see later on. Yeah, because you maybe wonder, well, it's only 78, not the 90. Yeah, but we will come to that later on. But first, let's look a little bit into code and what we did to achieve at least that. So I hand over to Johannes.
So, as already mentioned by Jan, you can see here's a comparison, the diff between the old core, the old monolithic core, compared to the new one that's from our first commit of the new core. And what you can see immediately on the left side is here are a lot of dependencies which are gone now. So dependencies, the old core provided in advance, and even independent, if you really needed or used this functionality, it was already loaded and made it really huge and yeah, slow though in a way. And the second thing you can see are the lines of code. So here's a lot of red on the side. So if I go down here, you see it has been more than 1,000 lines of code previously. And now with a new version, we are around about 15–16% of this one. So it's quite a lot less code in here. And if we check this now, what did we do here? You see the new core, a bit more compact now in this overview in the file directly. You see there are only a few dependencies, and here is almost no code or no API anymore, except for the ready, for example, and the own orchestration of the whole boot behavior. And to show this, I put the boot JSON next to it. So to explain a bit more what's behind it. We have now a fully configurable core, and this core was a configuration is defined in this so-called boot.json. And what you can see here on the right side is we have here over a config part, and then we have different boot phases, so pre-boot, boot, and post-boot. I skip the extents for now, I come to it later. But first, let's start with a bit an overview what happened in there and what's the orchestration of it and how does it work. And you can see in here, there are different providers mentioned, configuration providers. And if you remember back to the legacy version of the, not legacy version, but the 1.x core, you have this basic behavior of the configuration that you can provide configuration options via URL, via meta tag, via Bootstrap, or via global this config object or window sub UI config object. And these are fully configurable. So to be compatible to the 1.x version, we provide all these mechanisms again, and also this order is important. So if you add one at the end, it will have the highest precedence in this case. So if you provide a language, for example, via URL and via meta tag, the one from the URL will win in the end. And you can also add own providers here. So if you have different sources where your configuration is coming from, so even if you load it from somewhere, it's possible that you load this configuration or provide this configuration from a different source. You provide your own provider and you could extend it theoretically here. Then we have the boot phases. So pre-boot is mainly what should be there at the beginning. So to really start with, these are, for example, the polyfills. There are not so many anymore left, but yeah, there's still, I guess, 2. Therefore, we need this one, the log, to enable an early functionality of the logging, and the splash screen. As Jan mentioned it previously already, for the perceived performance, the first content through paint is quite a bit important. And this one comes as early as possible to improve this perceived performance and to enable a splash screen and early paint over there. After that, we have some modules in here in the boot, which are basically ensuring that the functionality of the core is in the end still the same of the old one. So we have some things like library loading or such stuff in here, which was there at the beginning of when the old core was already available. And I show a bit in detail what it's about this task, but maybe just one thing to bring it together with the core.js itself. You have here this boot manifest, so that's loaded over here. And after that, it's evaluated and all these providers are loaded and configuration is finalized. And after that, each phase is closed. So all the tasks or all what's defined in one phase is loaded, is executed, is finalized. And when it's done, it will start the next phase. So you can see it over here. We have this arrays we collect in a promise all. And to show this, I jump just over to a module. So I took the frame options, for example, to explain a bit how such a task should look like. So in this case, it's about to provide the functionality for the frame options config. In this case, it's just that this task is loaded. It's not so huge, so it does not provide so much overhead, especially in case you don't need the config. It only has as direct dependency the base config itself, and can therefore get the information from the configuration if something is needed. If yes, if it's the case, it's just requires lazily the frame options and the security module here afterwards, which enables us for parallel loading, for example. And also to ensure that we don't load overhead if we don't need this functionality in the end. This is basically also one thing you should keep in mind. You shouldn't rely on any task during the boot phase or so. It's just also to keep or to give us keep our flexibility. It's possible that we will maybe change later on when a task in which phase a task is executed, or if a task is split in two or merged with another one together. So therefore, within a phase, anyway, it's even not possible. All these tasks are executed in parallel, and therefore you can't rely on something out from another task from the same phase. But even when a phase is finished and all is done and the next one is started, you shouldn't rely on stuff which is done in previous phase, if possible. So, and here you can also see this one function. That was one thing I showed previously also here in the core. That's the promise all, so we collect them. That's always the same cascade. Loading tasks, executing tasks, waiting for the run, and then the next phase is going on. So that's mainly the part of how the boot JSON works and how the new orchestration and the new core works. And the extents is one part I skipped before, but we also provided the functionality that you are able to add additional tasks. For example, you can see here is no post-boot task currently, but here you are able to extend this configuration and to provide additional task or configuration provider. So we also did this in our coding for our internal UI5 test starter. We extend the core boot JSON, as you can see here. And we have an own provider, the unit configuration provider, because for our tests, we provide an additional configuration in the beginning to ensure specific test scenarios. And this configuration is provided via an JS file, by an object, and this configuration provider just reads it and provides it in time so that we can use this configuration from there at the correct point in time when we are booting for our test execution. Additionally, we have here a pre-boot task, but don't go too deep into this one. Another scenario where we internally already validated that this concept is working as expected and as designed is with the FLP2 sandbox, which is also already migrated to the new approach in 2.x. So one thing, especially regards to the extents, I showed again here, all these tasks and configuration providers already mentioned are usually the ones you need. So this means this extents has for the most of you probably no real impact because there shouldn't be a need to extend the configuration or even to override it. Showed this now in the next example. But basically, that should be what works for the most of you, especially because the tasks are small. And if you really, just don't want to use a functionality, it's ensured that we don't load it by accident or so, because we use the configuration to decide which modules are needed and which not. So, but anyway, if you want to extend it, we have a little sample provided here. And in this sample, I want to show you both cases. So once to extend and once even to override the Bootstrap. You see here, it's really a simple application, just rendering an icon or a nice Phoenix icon. And this application is not really special, but we want to extend it. And if we extend it, I've prepared it here already, but you can see the index extended has an own core file, the my boot extended.js, which is loaded. And I want to extend it to execute my own task. I described it here. It's not really a big, specific, sophisticated task, just shows an alert. And this task needs to be added to an own configuration, to an own boot extended JSON in this case. So boot JSON. We defined here the task as post-boot task. And as already shown in the QUnit conf example, you can see here we extend the original boot JSON. We also need to make aware that this boot JSON should be used. This is done by the global configuration object. That's one of the reasons why the global configuration provider is always part of the whole Bootstrap. You can't configure it away because there need to be at least the source of configuration to do the basic settings. And you can here define the location of your boot manifest. And if we now go to the extended app, I just loaded, you can see here is the task. It's currently blocking the Bootstrap, therefore you can't see the application. The core ready event is not called. But as soon as I press here, OK, you see there our Phoenix is there again.
A short question, Johannes, while you showed that. You mentioned that we use this this global object configuration provider for the injection of this boot manifest. Could this be also injected by the this Bootstrap script tag, so as an attribute? Is this also possible? Because then you could also declare it inline in the HTML page. So in the index,
as far as I know, it's not, because this needs to happen as early in time as possible, really early, and it's before the configuration.
No, it's not possible because all the other providers are registered in the Bootstrap itself, which is defined in the boot JSON.
Okay,
and
so
without boot JSON, it's a HANA-I problem. Without boot JSON, you do not know which providers to use. So we want to be able to use less providers, or only the global at all. And that's only
but this
possible.
Would be interesting because if you always have it like that, this comes with an additional effort to put it in that file, while as if you use it declaratively in the Bootstrap script, it would be very simple to write down there. To add a SAP
but
UI.
it's only needed if you have an own Bootstrap. So I think if the tooling support gets better here, yeah, and you bundle a Bootstrap, a known Bootstrap, yeah, the tooling knows, okay, here's a JSON, you give it the location to the JSON, and all this stuff could be generated, and nobody must care about it.
Okay.
Hopefully, so
Yeah, fair
that's
point.
at least the plan.
Yep.
Only until now we have to do such crazy things, but
Okay,
that will
good. That's
not survive. Hopefully,
that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Then let's go on. That was one part of the extending the Bootstrap. I thought I add one second thing. Just let me first uncomment this line, save, and trigger the build, because it takes a short while on my machine. Then I explain what I now do. We had it regarding the splash screen. So this short screen which is coming up as soon as we are during the boot phase, or as soon as we reach the pre-boot phase. And this splash screen, this can be, well, should be a simple HTML with native HTML in it. You shouldn't use any form modules or in general framework functionality during this splash, but it enables you to provide, for example, the logo of your application or the brand of your company, or even as we did it in here, just in nice own splash text with a bit CSS behind. And if I now go over here and finish building and I reload, you can see we have here already at pre-boot phase our own splash screen rendered and it's displayed. And since we still stuck in the boot phase because the task is, the alert is blocking the Bootstrap, I release it, and you see the splash screen is removed as soon as we render the icon, and all is working fine. So that's one part to the extended. The next one is more a bit to show what's even possible, but it's also, as this one is already an edge case, it's a case which, for example, the Fiori Launchpad needs to do things up front or so. As mentioned previously, really, you usually should probably not need this case. And the next one is even a bit further. So for if you have really something special in mind, or if you run only in a node environment or something like this, we could also go for minimal Bootstrap, so real minimal. And this means in this case, we don't provide anything. We don't extend our base config, and we don't provide any other stuff. This one is even a more minimal version from the first application showed here. So we don't render anything. The only thing we do is we do some number formatting on the console. And if I load this one, you can see we have here the number formatting for different languages with dots in German, with comma in English. So that's working fine. And the interesting thing is here maybe that you can see we compare now the myboot minimal.js. So my core here is 25.3 kilobyte. And the one over here is 32.4. So even here you can see a significant difference. And especially also if you look at the total resources loaded, we have 3.7 MB here in the extended case, and in the minimal, it's less than the half of it. So there, I would say, is a lot of things possible.
Johannes, I think what we can also mention here is this approach of chunking, because that's also one thing we have mentioned at the keynote this year, that this is one of the optimizations we are planning for the UI5 framework.
That's the perfect handover to Jan to give you a bit more of an idea, because that's what we already reached, that's what's already available also via the nightly tool CDN. And Jan will tell you now a bit more like an outlook what chunking can also bring us.
Yeah, as Peter started to tell you, we plan to improve further. So we told you, at UI5Con last year that we also plan to not only junk the Bootstrap, load in parallel, but also start to junk the complete library stuff. So if you only need some 10 modules for your application from the core library. It's not necessary to load the complete big thing, 2 megabyte or so. You only need some small chunks. So actually, we are working on that. We have the first ideas how to generically chunk libraries, and I prepared the first POC, and I quickly can show you how this will look like. So I have the same application as you've seen before. 31 requests, 3.6 megabyte, new Bootstrap. Now we do the same as chunking. So yeah, I leave out the chunk process itself. So I chunk the core library, and what you can see here, it's not one big file loaded, it's a lot of chunks loaded now. Yeah, and this ends up in less payload, 2.2 megabyte instead of 3.6. So it's a lot less code you need to load. All in parallel, so everything looks good. And what we do is, if you configure a library that we should load, we only load what, and you still have a library, but it's only information for the loader to find the right chunks and load them in parallel for you. So it's less smaller, it's 90K. I think here it was library preload. It's about, don't know where it is. Somewhere it was 2 megabyte. And if we do a lot of measurement, we come to something like 87. Yeah, and we get under 4 seconds, and it's not red anymore, it's not green, but it's yellow. And that's more than 2 seconds faster than where we started this one. It was 6.2. This measurement, we are in 3.8. And all that comes out of the box. Normal Bootstrap, not extended, only configure what's needed for the application. And with library chunking, we can come nearly to a score we showed you last year with a highly optimized application, a POC. Not everything was in there. The core was not had no feature parity to the old one. Now it has, yeah. And with the chunking, we will nearly at the same score than if you do a self-contained build. That's why we started not with a self-contained build this time. That's it. Oh, one more thing, maybe you could at least look at the demo kit that's provided, not sources itself yet, but that will come, and we will inform you when you can try it out. But you will find the demo kit with the new Bootstrap here. You see it's only the ready available, not the rest of the core stuff and APIs we like in 1.x. And you can try out all samples as well as the demo apps that should open and work. It comes up and then it's fast and it's working. You can click here, something is working, and that's all the new stuff. But the chunking is not yet in there. But as soon as we have a first version, we will also deploy it here.
There was one question in the chat, and I think this can be answered by you. What is missing in the minimal boot that makes it smaller? You also mentioned node environment for the app. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. What we actually do, we pack the Bootstrap script is everything. All the tasks we configured in the boot.json, the loader, and some configuration. And if you leave out all the, or if you do a minimal boot and you will not have any task, yeah, you must not bring it in the boot script. Yeah, even if the tasks are small and shouldn't load too much code, even that code is not in the boot. Yeah, and if you do not have any task that uses UI, window, or any DOM related stuff, yeah, you can configure all that stuff out, and then you are able to run a node, for example.
Yeah, the interesting
or
part where this is really
environment.
useful, just maybe to add that is, we had some cases where in the mobile SDK, there are some developments going on, for example, to display integration card on a mobile. So the integration card logic is rewritten with a mobile native implementation, but they would like to reuse the formatting from OpenUI5 or from SAP UI5, yeah. And the thing to make it possible, we converted all the CLDR code into a small bundle, and by reducing then all the dependencies to the browser, we could just drop that into the node so that they could run that on a node engine on a mobile device and just trigger the formatting on that one. That was also one of the examples what Johannes showed there, how that works.
I mean, that was a question more or less from Volker. So how to use it, like with OpenUI5. I think what you saw here is now with Jan, that he was like showing the OpenUI5 2.x version on CDN, right?
The demo kit was the one at CDN, exactly. Yeah.
That contains this already. But I think you also plan like to provide like a branch there on GitHub. Is it right?
That's right. Yeah, we plan to provide you a branch where you can check out all the sources, and maybe if you do a workspace configuration, so clone this branch, then you have an actual development 2.x, and then you can do all that extension stuff or do some experiments on that.
There was one other question coming up. Does the parallel loading of chunks require HTTP2 protocol on the server?
Yes.
I would say ideally yes, because otherwise you have only 6 parallel requests, and this would block a lot. So yeah, as modern servers mostly support HTTP2, we can rely on that feature, and I think this is really a great way of improving overall the way how we do that loading of little chunks, reducing the size, and also in the chunking itself. I think this is really a great opportunity now for us to get the sizes of the library smaller and then to load what's needed on demand. And this is really a great perspective, which is hopefully coming then soon also in the standard. Okay, let's go forward. So another topic for today's session is to talk a little bit about CSS Custom Properties and how you can use it for your custom control development. I pulled out a blog post from 2020 when we also started a little bit talking about the rendering evolution. And in the rendering evolution at that point in time, we talked about semantic rendering, which is the version 2, about web components. And also there was already the topic about CSS variables. So we also had considered to introduce the variables in the framework, and we had it also inside for quite a while as an experimental feature. But now starting with 1.27 version of UI5, it became now the standard. In these older versions, yeah, we had this parameter sub-UI_XX CSS variables, and you could add it with additional or true, and then enable the availability of variables. But now this has been turned to becomes part of the standard delivery of us. For all, quickly to just explain what variables are in our custom properties are. It's a way of how we can provide in the CSS the parameters in a common way. It's you specify the name of the variable, then you assign the value, and then everyone can make use of that. A very small example I have here on JS bin. It showcases with a web component implementation how to use it. So here, this is my web component tag, but it's just for, I pulled out this example because I had that quickly at hand. And here in this web component, what I have is that inside in the shadow root, I'm using here a div tag. And in order to make use of this, this custom property here, the only thing what I need to do is if I want to render it now, let's run the example with the property. I can now use the variable here directly, and then I just use the my border color. So by doing that, I'm now benefiting from the centrally defined variable, which comes from, in our case, from in UI5 from the theme, from our SAP UI core library CSS theme. I just want to show it to you. I have no better visualization, but here what we found in that is that in the this SAP UI core library CSS for every theme, Horizon or Fiori 3, you can find this root column rule, CSS rule, which contains all these variables or custom properties coming from the theming base content. Theming base content is something we have established as a kind of a foundation across all the themes, providing all the theme parameters as on the one hand side, less parameters, or now also this CSS custom properties. And this is now a great opportunity to make use of these custom properties to also benefit in your custom control development from that. And in order to make use and to get an overview on that, you can also check now in the demo kit, in the resources section, there is the theming parameter toolbox. And if you open the theming parameter toolbox, you can find now an overview about the CSS custom properties, which are available and how they look like. You see here the names of these custom properties. You can copy these names and use them for your development of a custom control. And finally, I want to like to show you quickly on how you can make use of that in your custom control development. So I made here a small JS bin. I share it also with you in the chat later on. So give me a second. But let me briefly explain that. And here what I did is I create now in my HTML page a small control. And this control, let's take first a look on that part, has in the renderer implementation a class being defined. And this class is then defined with a constructible style sheet. So this is a nice opportunity in CSS to also transport via code a style sheet. And here in this case, what I do is in my control definition, the first thing what I do is to create this constructible style sheet. I define the CSS for my control. And then I can make use for my CSS properties here from these custom properties being defined. So here for the color, we use the text color, and for the border, we use the arrow color. And so this is as simple as it is here. And when I run that now, I can see here in this case, the text is being displayed white and the border is being displayed red. If I change now the theme, so let's do it here via tag data SAP UI theme, and we say SAP Horizon. This is the light one. Then if I run that, the text becomes black, and the border is now a little bit darker red. But the cool thing about that is now that your custom control can now benefit from theming without being part of a theme build, what we had in the past when using the less parameters, or that you had to access with a legacy API in a synchronous way the theme parameters and then apply the theme parameters with DOM operations on the control. And I think this is now the much better way on how you at the end can benefit from theming. And also you can see high contrast white also. The thing is also working properly. There's no big difference. So let's go to black. And here again, this control doesn't benefit a lot of that. But basically, this is what I wanted to show, that you can now also externalize this in a CSS file. So your CSS file is then automatically theming aware by just using these parameters instead of having different colors. And then you can ensure that if a theme is switched, the theming colors will directly affect your custom control, and you don't need to think of any special build, whatever, or different CSS to be embedded if a different theme is being integrated. And I think this is what you really should keep in mind with that you have this opportunity with a theming and the CSS custom properties here. Good. If there are no questions, if there are any questions when you start using that, feel free to reach out to us. That's it.
For today, we can close now. And I hope you are curious now also to test OpenUI5 2.x. Let us know what you think, also what you think of the new Bootstrap, and maybe you have some ideas what can improve. So just let us know. But for now, I think we should say goodbye, and we hope we can see you all in October then again. So bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. See you in October. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.